Hi, good afternoon, NFL football players. Oh, what does this say? You are not teaching NFL football players. I keep making this mistake, so I guess learn how to tackle better. No. Learn how to spend your millions of dollars. No. Are you a turtle, tiger, or an owl? No. Wait a minute, those aren't football team names. Oh, that's what we're doing today. All right, let's try again. Hey, boys and girls, it's Chris from Fortress. Today we're going to be talking about how to be more assertive, and we'll get into a little bit more about what that's about. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So there's should be a bunch of handouts if you get the activity kits delivered to you. This will be the first one we'll look at. It says, learning about communication. Are you like a turtle, a tiger, or an owl? Now, the turtle represents non-assertive, or it's also called passive, way of communicating. The tiger represents aggressive communication style, or the owl is your assertive style. So if you're being like a turtle or non-assertive, you hide, avoid, fearful of rejection or the anger of others. If you're more like a tiger, you're rude, bossy, and controlling of others. Or if you're like an owl, you're wise, calm, and collected. You're more observant than you are reactive, instead of reacting to something. If you're a turtle, your goal is to play it safe and be liked. Your goal as a tiger is to be right and prove it. Or your goal as an owl is to express yourself honestly and kindly. The turtle is fearful of being yelled at or others using physical force. A tiger uses verbal and even physical force, or an owl refrains from verbal or physical force. A turtle keeps things in order to avoid making mistakes or getting into trouble. A tiger uses you statements, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. And an owl uses I statements, which we'll also talk about. A turtle is very sensitive to disapproval and rejection. A tiger is insensitive to others. An owl is sensitive and caring to both self and others. So, what I would recommend, there's a lot on here. I would recommend reading through all these and seeing the difference between being like a turtle, a tiger, or an owl. And I think you'll see that being more like an owl is how we can be even better people and do better things. And we're talking about superpowers here, and part of that is being acting like a good person. So this right here, this being assertive, this is how we're trying to be more like. The next thing we'll look at is those I and you statements that I was talking about. So there's a handout for that if you get the activity kits. And we'll go through a few of those. So the difference between using I statements and you statements is the difference between using effective communication that works, or ineffective communication. And that's communication that doesn't really work. It doesn't really get you anywhere. So when you use I statements, you're saying things like, I'm uncomfortable when you raise your voice at me. Versus saying a you statement, which would be, you have no right to raise your voice at me. I am frustrated that you do not seem to grasp my point. Versus, you're not listening to me. I'm not sure if you heard me say that. I told you that already. It took me aback when you said that. How could you say that? So are you seeing a difference here? It's a difference between using descriptive statements, being kind. It's also about showing empathy. Like, you seem really upset about that. Versus, there's nothing for you to worry about. So it's just a different way of communicating. One, you kind of put somebody kind of on the defensive, and it's kind of sounds like you're being like that tiger. You're being really aggressive. Versus I statements where in a way you're kind of stating facts and you're stating how you feel. So I recommend that you take this handout and you read through all these. And you see, maybe you'll see some of the things that you say over here in the you statements. And that'll make you realize, oh, that's making me more like the tiger. That's not making me like an owl. I need to be more careful next time. What could I say instead? And then you look over on this side and it gives you an I statement to say instead of it. And I think you'll find, and this is kind of part of that superpower thing, you start using more I statements than you statements, you'll be a lot happier with how people act with you and how they, and whether or not your message that you're trying to send gets across to somebody. Sometimes when you just use these you statements and you accuse people and you're aggressive, they just kind of shut you out and they don't want to listen to you. But when we're more assertive and we use these I statements, people are more likely to hear what you're saying, and maybe it'll make a difference. The final thing that we're going to look at is there is a handout that comes with the activity kit if you get those, and it's called an I message. And I messages are respectful and truthfully state your thoughts and feelings in a tactful way, which means that you're being considerate. And carefully thinking it through. They avoid blaming others and only state feelings and ask for a change without demanding it. So it's a difference again about being assertive versus being aggressive, being like that tiger. So the way this works is pretty easy. At first it takes some practice, but you can learn how to make this statement. So it starts off, it says, I feel, and then you fill in the blank. So you put in the name of an emotion. I feel angry. When you, and then you describe the behavior. So I feel angry when you don't treat me respectfully. I would like, or I'm asking you to, fill in the blank. And that's where you request a change. So I feel angry when you don't treat me with respect. I would like you to treat me with more respect. At times, if the behavior is very upsetting, you might want to add a limit or a consequence. So you'd be making that statement, and then you would add to that, if it happens again, I will blank. And that's where you set a limit or a consequence. So I feel angry when you don't treat me with respect. I would like you to treat me with more respect. If it happens again, I'm not going to invite you over to my house. Does that make sense? So on the bottom of this page, it gives you a place where you can put your own fill in the blanks for yourself, and you can try it out for yourself. So try to think of a situation where you could use an I statement instead of either keeping quiet, which is being like who? That's right, the turtle, and being passive or being non-assertive. Or instead of using a you statement, and who are you being like when you use a you statement? That's right, like a tiger, you're being aggressive. So we're trying to be like the owl, we're trying to be assertive. And so this is something that you can learn, and it's really simple once you kind of commit it to your memory. I feel a certain way when you do something, I would like you to do this instead. And then if you have to, you can add, if it happens again, then this is what's going to happen. So does that make sense? So anyway, I encourage y'all to look at these things about using I statements versus you statements, about being more like an owl than a turtle or a tiger. And I encourage y'all to kind of look for yourselves making you statements instead of I statements and trying to think of a way that you could say it differently to where you're using more of an I statement. And again, this is adding to that whole superpower thing. So not only are you able to control your emotions instead of your emotions controlling you, but you can also communicate in a better way and have more influence over the people around you and what's going on. So anyway, thanks again for joining me this week. I look forward to seeing y'all next week for our final lesson, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.